Year's award, so I just wanted to point out that we have a few past recipients from other years with us. Dave Friedman is here, back there. I don't know if you know, we gave him a part of Madison last year. He started the Madison area vegetarian meetup, which is actually all vegan dining. I looked on their website today. 729 people in Madison are signed up. If you're not a member of the meetup, you ought to Google Madison Meetup. And it's a great get-together. There's events just like this all over the city where a restaurant will turn everything that they do vegan, bring people in, and it's just an amazing thing. You can meet new people, try great food. So anyway, we're really pleased to have Dave with us tonight. We also have with us still tonight, we have Bill Leaders, who we gave a award to last year.
Yay, Bill!
We gave him the Heart of Journalism Award last year and the year before. He also last year won a Genesis Award. I don't know if you know, Genesis is like the Academy Awards of animal stuff. It takes place out in California. And I just learned that he was nominated for a Genesis Award again this year.
Yay!
Also, I just learned that, I've never heard of these, but the Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Awards for Excellence in Broadcast Journalism just issued their awards. And 2 years ago, we gave an award for the Heart of Journalism to WKOW News. And so, lo and behold, this the DuPont Award for Excellence in Broadcasting, these are the people they are giving awards to this year. 60, and these are all for specific stories that were covered. CBS's 60 Minutes, ABC's 2020, BBC News, PBS's Frontline, NPR, CNN, and WKOW News. So we're really pleased to have Alicia S. with us here tonight from WKOW. So when we give awards to journalists, it doesn't mean we just pick random people. We think that they're really doing a good job, and it's really nice to know that other people around the country take notice of what they're doing as well. So that's just outstanding. So that brings me this year to our first award, our Heart of Journalism Award. And this year's recipient is Todd Finkelmeyer. Todd's been covering higher ed for the Capital Times since April 2008. In 2009, he wrote 2 articles related to the university's use of animals. In 2010, he wrote 20 articles about the university's use of animals. Mr. Finkelmeyer's articles have been fair and balanced. He's not promoting any agenda, he's just covering the news. Largely through his work, the general public was kept up to date about Resolution 35 and the extraordinary scrutiny of the university recently by the USDA and the NIH. Public discussion and debate in a democracy relies on journalists' integrity and willingness to cover controversial issues potentially embarrassing to those in power. Mr. Finkelmeyer joins a select group of local reporters who have gone against the grain and written about practices and problems at the university that the university works diligently to sweep under the rug. We're honoring Mr. Finkelmeyer, or I should say Todd, for his integrity and willingness to cover an issue that most other reporters and local media outlets have shied away from. Todd Finkelmeyer's work is an example of news reporting that all media outlets should nurture and emulate. Todd Finkelmeyer.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to keep this really short to say that I've gotten to know a handful of you here in this room over the last year and a half, 2 years, and you've really done an excellent job of educating me about a lot of these different animal rights issues. And I mean, to be honest, before that, I didn't think about a lot of these things. I just, you know, you might have heard about them from time to time, didn't really just think about them. So I appreciate you guys sitting down and taking the time and pointing some things out to me. You know, as a whole, I don't know where the Madison community stands on a lot of these things, but I think the most important thing is that because of the efforts of people like you, more people are thinking about these and talking about these, and I think that's a good thing because I think these are issues worth having some public debate over. So, thanks again, everybody.
Our next award is the Heart of Veterinary Medicine. And veterinarian Susan Krebsbach has been speaking on behalf of animals for 2 decades and has been recognized for her service to animals by many animal rights, animal advocacy organizations. Dr. Krebsbach was the editor of the Alternatives in Veterinary Medical Education newsletter for over 8 years, a publication dedicated to highlighting educational tools that can replace the harmful use of animals in veterinary schools. Previously, she was the science director for the Association of Veterinarians for Animal Rights. Dr. Krebsbach is the founder, past president, and currently a member of the board of directors of the Dane County Friends of Ferals. While president, she established a monthly clinic to provide spay and neuter surgeries for feral cats in Dane County. She's volunteered her services to several animal rescue organizations. She currently owns and operates Creature Counseling, a veterinary animal behavior consulting service dedicated to the enhancement of the special relationship that exists between companion animals and us. She currently already said that. We're honoring Dr. Krebsbach for her dedication to the animals in Dane County and her continuing advocacy on their behalf. Her work for animals, we believe, is an example of the dedication to their patients that all veterinarians should aspire to attain. We're very honored to be able to give Susan Dr. Krebsbach the Heart of Veterinary Medicine.
Thank you so much. First of all, it is so great to be enveloped and embraced by a room full of compassion. I really love that. If I look a little bit disheveled, it's because I just came from a spay-neuter-thon where we sterilized 86 cats. Okay. That's the most we've ever done in an 8-hour time period. So I'm really proud of the team that we work with. The Dane County Friends of Ferals and Madison Area Technical College. What I love about this, you guys, is that we're working with veterinary students from the University of Wisconsin, veterinary technician students from MATC. Okay? We've got volunteer veterinarians, veterinary technicians, and what's so nice about this is that not only are we helping the cats, which of course are critical, we're contributing to the community, but we're educating the future of the veterinary profession. That's what's so critical. So I was really proud of it. As Rick indicated, a big driving force for me has been providing non-harmful use of animals in veterinary education, and so I'm talking about veterinary technicians and veterinarians. Some of you may not be aware of this, but when I graduated from the Ohio State, I'm still a badger fan. I was born and raised here, okay? But I went to the Ohio State for med school. It was required when you're learning surgery your junior year, is that you took a healthy animal and you killed them at the end of it. That's how you did surgery. I refused to do it. Okay, they tried to keep me out. Students that were part of this group. We were 120 in my class. Now, I was kind of the mouthpiece of this group. I take after my mother, and for those who don't know Diane Iverson, you probably understand if that's true. So we were able to create what's called an alternative, and where we actually used cadavers to learn the procedures. We did more extensive or longer term surgical rotations in our senior year. And longer anesthesia rotations, and I actually thought we got a better education than the traditional students. But the coolest thing for me was okay, so I graduated in 1995. I'm giving away my age here. And I went back to school as an elder student too. In 2005, I was actually in Norway, listening to a presentation from one of my previous surgery professors talking about the use of alternatives in veterinary medical education. And he said, at Ohio State, there is no longer an alternative program because the alternative program is a traditional. 15 years later, okay, when I went 15 years later since I graduated from vet school, back then there were 27 vet schools. All of them required terminal surgery to learn how to do surgery. There's now 28 vet schools in the United States, and less than half require terminal surgeries. So what I want to leave you with tonight is that we are making progress. It's because of the individuals like you. Everything that you're doing, we're making progress. Social change is slow. But I never thought, to be honest with you, only 15 years later, that more than half of the schools had given up doing terminal surgeries.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And so this is a great example of how each one of us can make a difference. And so I want to thank you very much for this award tonight, which really means a great deal to me. And I want to thank all of my family and friends for being such a support to me at a very difficult time throughout my life. Thanks.
I don't like politicians. What can I say? But there are exceptions. And this year we're giving the heart of politics to County Supervisor Al Matano. He introduced Resolution 35 for the Dane County Board of Supervisors. Resolution 35, which Todd covered quite frequently in his writing, would have established a citizens advisory panel to study the use of monkeys in Dane County at Covance Laboratories and at the UW. Resolution 35 was immediately controversial because it challenged the status quo, the freewheeling use of animals in laboratories in Dane County. Resolution 35 was a challenge to two of the most powerful entities in the county. Questioning the actions of such powerful organizations is politically risky. Introducing Resolution 35 required a principled position that placed transparency and ethics ahead of political safety. We're honoring Supervisor Matano for his dedication to the democratic process. We're honoring him for bringing the question of primate experimentation before the local government. His concern and work for the weakest members of our community is an example of what all politicians should aspire to. I'm honored to be able to present the award to Al Matano.
Thanks all of you. When Rick sent me an email saying heart of government as the subject line, I really didn't know what that meant, and I had sort of forgotten working on Resolution 35. We kind of get busy and move on to other things, and felt like I hadn't delivered a win, and wins are good. So I was really touched, as I am tonight. I think Res 35 was a product of the work of all of you. And I recall sitting in Ann Emerson's house with Lynn and Leslie and Rick Meralt and John, and conspiring on that topic. And so I think all of you really created an impetus for something that didn't happen this year, but will happen in the future. As a personal matter, people make fun of the county board. We're not as famous as the city council. We don't stay up until 2 in the morning every year. We like to call that efficient. They say we talk about arcane topics like manure digesters and zoning petitions, and I actually find those topics pretty interesting. But converse to those, animal issues are really exciting, and so I found this to be a profound and great opportunity. Supervisor Kyle Richmond, my colleague who had intended to be here tonight, introduced a letter earlier in the year, and we got a majority of the county board members to sign the letter to the Chancellor, Betty Martin, to ask her to pay heed to our issues. And indeed she has, and the leaders chuckled today when he found out that she sponsored she wrote us an email saying that she's sponsoring a series of talks on animal issues, in large measure due to the interest shown by the county board, and they're on the nights the county board meets. Don't thought that was cute. I can't talk about local government without inviting you all to run for office. And I know maybe just one of you in this room might consider it at some point, but we're going through redistricting, and we're talking about keeping our districts many so that the number of constituents you'd have would be small, so regular people can run. So at some point, we're always recruiting people for some district or another. So if you have it in your heart and mind to run, please consider it. Animals mean a lot to me. Bill, to quote Bill again, he noted the dichotomy between the personal relationship we have with our companion animals and the fact that we torture monkeys and labs. We're not supposed to use torture, but when Res 35 was still a viable piece of legislation, I urged against language like that, but I think we can say that now. But it's an interesting dichotomy, and it's based on, I believe, the fact that people are kept in the darkness as to what's going on in the labs. People are told that if you want grandma not to die of some hideous disease, you should support this. On a personal level, I lost my mom when I was 8 years old, many, many years ago. Since lost my dad, since lost a sister, all the cancer. And in those 46 years, we really haven't seen great strides in cancer research. I read an article in Newsweek earlier this year that explained the reason why we're not seeing great strides towards medical research, killing off the great diseases. We haven't cured a disease since polio. The reason we are not making great strides is competition. Lab people are trained to compete for research dollars and prestige. So if somebody at the University of California, Berkeley has the left half of the solution to curing cancer, and somebody at the University of Wisconsin has the right half, and I use that as just an absurd analogy, the left and right part, not the solution part. The two won't communicate with each other because it would be against their best interests as competitive researchers. And Newsweek wrote this article with not an ounce of animal rights issues in their head when they wrote it, but they were trying to figure out, well, why after all this research have we made no headway on major diseases? And those are the reasons. Essentially, medical research has become a way to generate funding for the medical industry and especially the pharmaceutical industry. So I have had companion animals in my life. I've lost a dear friend a month ago, and Maine Coon cat. And so I understand the relationship people have with animals. I don't eat them. I think it's important that animals have lives and that they can have fulfilling existences. And it should not be taken lightly that they're here for people's enjoyment, entertainment, or research. But just as an optimistic prediction to close with, I believe that in the course of discussing Resolution 35, we changed the political calculus. We lost for a simple reason. The political cost of supporting Res 35 was greater than the political cost of opposing it. But that equation shifted throughout the debate. We increased the heat on people, and we've increased the cost of not supporting animals and their welfare. So I think that equation is nearing a tipping point, and at some point the political cost of not supporting animal issues is going to exceed the cost of supporting them. And I look forward to working with you to come to that day.
Well, last but certainly not least, Lynn and I realized, I was figuring out the other day, I think we have 7 combined years of public education. We were both school teachers before we dropped out and started working on this insanely difficult issue. Anyway, our last one goes to, it's the heart of humane education. And children come into the world as blank slates. They learn what's right and what's wrong by watching their parents in the world around them. Sadly, many of these lessons teach them that animals are here for us to eat, to torment as we choose, to pretty much treat them any way we want. But some elementary school teachers around the state have been encouraging their students to be kind to animals. For 3 years, through the generosity of our members, the Alliance for Animals has been providing classroom sets of magazines called Kind News. That's produced by the Humane Society of the United States. It helps teachers who teach their students to be kind to animals. This year, we honor Leopold Elementary here in Madison because more teachers there use Kind News than in any other school in the state, to the best of our knowledge. We honor the teachers at Leopold Elementary School using Kind News and working to lead their students to become thoughtful and caring adults because they are an example of what all teachers of young children should aspire to be. The reason so many teachers at the school are using Kind News is largely because of our person that's going to accept the award tonight, Leopold teacher Maria-Christina Jackson. It's wonderful to have you here.
Wow, give me 30 kids, even 50 kids, no problem, but a room full of adults is very, very different. And I wish I had made my notes a little bit bigger. So bear with me, but I'm very honored to be here tonight representing Leopold Elementary. And I'd like to sincerely thank Rick and Lynn and Alliance for Animals and the many, many donors who make it possible for so many children to receive Kind News. This is especially important since we know that the best way to shape the future is through our children. So Leopold may be getting the award, but the real winners are the children who receive this fine publication. I've been I was a classroom teacher for 16 years, and now I'm a teacher coach in the school, and still working with the students and teachers. And Kind News, I really made an error because I meant to bring a stack of them tonight in case people had not seen them. But it is just a really fine publication that I feel, I'm so glad that lots of schools throughout Wisconsin and hopefully the United States that they're using it. So thank you very much again. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm not. Me. Okay. Before we introduce our guest speaker, I wanted to say a few things about Alliance for Animals. I'm just going to tell a few stories. Since the last Vegantines event, we've done a lot, and it's all because of a lot of our volunteers. You may have noticed the Simply Vegan billboard on the Beltline and the Simply Vegan bus ads. They're wonderful. But that happened because someone called the Alliance, and said, I'm in a position to make a donation to Alliance, but I want to focus on the vegan issue. What have you got planned? You know, what can I help you with? And it just so happened that we had a graphic designer design the logo Simply Vegan, and we also started a new website. So he and I got together and had coffee, and he decided that he would fund that billboard. And so because of his, wonderful generosity, we were able to produce that. And if it wasn't for him, we would probably not be able to do it. Another example, we received I received an email from a young woman who said, I would like to help the Alliance for Animals. What do you need help with? And I said, well, the circus is coming to town. And we've done protests in front of it year after year, but it doesn't seem to do anything but make people hate us. So we'd like to do if you're interested in a long-term campaign, against the circus or against elephants in particular, why don't we meet for coffee and we can talk about it. So because of that, we gained 3 very dedicated people, Angela, Julie, and Maddie, who are here tonight. And they have studied the use of elephants in the circus. They've become educated about it, and they've, because of them, we are, okay, because of them, we're going to have a presence at the Zora Shrine Circus this year. We're not going to be protesting, we're going to be handing out educational material, and also hope to do a long-term campaign to try to make Dane County an elephant-free zone. Another example is Hannah, who's here tonight, and she called and said, you know, has Alliance for Animals ever thought about doing a vegan fest? And we said, well, yeah, sure, we'd love to do one, or we'd love to support one. And she said, well, I'd like to do that. And so we met for coffee, and ended up that Hannah has gotten a group of people together, volunteers, to organize the very first Mad City Vegan Fest, which is going to be this summer. And just another example. Also, Carol is here tonight. She's someone who is a singer-songwriter and also a vegan chef, vegan cook. And she said, you know, I made a resolution, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to do what I can for the animals. How can I help? She said, I have an idea for a benefit concert. I'd like to do a cooking class at the co-op. And so Carol and I met for coffee. And Michelangelo's makes a lot of money on us. And because of her, we had our very first musical benefit concert last week at Mother Fools, and that did help us to cover the brochures for the circus protest, or the circus information. And also we're getting ready to do a cooking class. So just another example. And finally then there's also our primate freedom group, our monkey group, we call them. The monkey group has met every week for 6 years to work on bringing the issue of the use of animals in research at the university, and just as another example. And the reason why I'm talking about these examples is because these are people that didn't call and say, why aren't you doing this? Or you need to do this, or I don't like that. And they were people that called us and said, I have an idea, I really want to help the animals, and how can you, I'd like to help you, and I need your help. You know, so that's what we love, is that kind of a thing. So what I wanted to say tonight is I'd like to challenge all of you to, if you care about the animals, to step up your game a little. Someone once told me that what makes a successful organization is 3 things: wealth, wisdom, and work. And the gentleman who helped us with the Simply Vegan Award, that's an example of wealth. He doesn't have time to come out to a meeting, or he doesn't have time to go to a protest, which we don't really have, but he has the financial ability to pay for that. And so that was just an example. And even for some of you, it would just mean becoming a member of the Alliance for Animals, which is just $25 a year. So, and then the circus, I call them the circus girls, but it's not really very nice. The circus campaign and the Vegan Fest campaign is an example of giving through work. You know, it's people who are willing to just jump in, make a mistake if they do, and not worry about it, and take the challenge, and use some hard work. So for anybody else, it's like writing a letter to the editor, or joining one of our groups, putting some time in. And then Carol, that's the wisdom. She knows how to cook. She's a singer-songwriter. So she's giving through her wisdom. I mean, there are attorneys, some of you are attorneys, some of you are graphic designers, some of you like to plan parties. Maybe you're an artist. We need you to make our voices stronger. And then the primate group, well, they're a combination, they've developed into a combination of all 3. I don't think signing online petitions is enough. And so think about how you can take it one step further and give us a call or an email, and we'll go have coffee and we'll see what can happen. So I want to thank you all for coming, and you're all wonderful, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Wonderful. I've been hearing about Rae Sikora for about 14 years since we first got involved in animal rights issues. Having been a school teacher myself and transitioning into animal rights, it was only natural to be interested in the Center for Compassionate Living, which offers training for people who wanted to help the planet and all its inhabitants. Rae's work and with Zoe Weil, the book Sowing Seeds was written for humane educators, and it's one of those books that I wish I would have written. You could read all about Rae in your program, so I'm not going to repeat that. But what I want to just tell you a couple things about her. First of all, you might find it interesting that she and her husband live in a camper. They live on the road, which is really awesome. Right now they're parked in Arizona. In a recent phone conversation with her, she said that it's just so nice to have more control over the amount of natural resources that you're using. When I was looking for a speaker for this year's event, what made us kind of instantly know that she was the right choice was reading her blog, Plant Peace Daily. This is what cinched it for me. It was one entry that said, "Sorry, I haven't been blogging lately, but I'd just rather be outdoors right now." Another post said, "Sometimes everyone needs to get away from the places overpowered by human influence and just rest in what is still left of the most beautiful parts of Earth." Working with her on making arrangements for this event was really easy. Rae is very calm, she's positive, and she's laid back, which I'm none of those. So very welcoming. And I found this. Howard Lyman said, "If Rae was in charge of the world, we would all be living in peace." So I'm honored to introduce Rae Sikora as your guest speaker.
Pleasure to be here. I'm so grateful every time I get to be surrounded by a group of compassionate people, and I get that a lot in my life, so I'm very blessed that way. This says, "Please clean filter." Whose job is that? That's so funny, it says that. Is it going to keep saying that?
We'll go away.
Oh, okay. If not, we're definitely going to remember to clean the filter. So, some folks ask that I say how I got into this work. And it relates to love, which is perfect for tonight's theme. When I was 5 years old, I was afraid of all animals. If I saw a dog out on the street, I would come in and wouldn't go out again for hours. And my father decided that this was ridiculous. And he went to the local shelter and he brought home this little puppy and said, "You are going to sit every night for an hour with this puppy on your lap until you stop being afraid, because this is going to hold you back." And I was terrified of this puppy. I would press my back against the wall to get far away, and then something flipped. And I fell in love completely. And I looked in the eyes of this being, and this dog and I became best friends. In fact, in quite a insane household, I would have to say this dog was the most sane member, and the only family member I felt totally comfortable with. So it really, my father says he created a monster. I became known as the animal person in the community, and people would call me for everything. We have a snapping turtle in our driveway, and we want to back out. Can you do something? You know, things like this. And we had the garage filled with all that wildlife who were wounded, who I would bring home, and you know, I'd stitch them with dental floss and take care of them and release them. And so I was known as the animal person, which I thought was a compliment. I still do. And it just grew and grew, and at 15 years old, someone asked me if, you know, they heard I was an animal lover, and then they said, oh, do you eat meat? And my 15-year-old thought was, meat, what does that have to do with animals? You know, I never made the connection. And in that instant, I answered that person, but I had just eaten a hot dog, and my friend knew it, who was with me. I had just eaten a hot dog, and I said, no, I don't eat meat. And my friend looked at me like, hello, I just saw you eat a hot dog. And we walked away from the other person, and she said, why did you lie? And I said, I didn't lie. I said, I'll never do it again. The light bulb went on for me. The connection was made. And it just grew and grew for me as I just kept my eyes open. I thought, okay, I want to know, how do my choices affect who and what I care about, or I claim to care about. So it grew, and then, I don't know, you know, this person who wanted me to say how I got into this work, I didn't choose it. It chose me all along the way. Just keeping my heart open and my mind open, and saying, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, I had very well-paying work, producing a radio show for NPR, and I walked away from it to get paid nothing to do humane education in schools, because that's where my heart was. So that, in a nutshell, is how I ended up in this work. So I have this fella on here for a reason. It is impossible, if we don't share culture and language, it's impossible for me to know if you are intelligent. Impossible. How do I prove to you that I'm intelligent if we don't share culture and language? So if we can't do this with other humans, how can we do it with other species? It's nearly impossible. We have to trust. So what often happens is we say, if this being can do what we do, oh, they must be pretty smart. So if a pig can play a computer game, or a dog can do a computer game, or a dolphin can play a computer game, or an elephant can paint a picture, we go, ooh, smart. But they have to do what we do. They adapt better to our world than we do to theirs. I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, because I don't think we have a clicker remote. So they do get our language. Everybody knows what this dog is saying here, but we don't know most of dog language. This is my dog Bean, and I know exactly what she's saying. She's going, huh? You know, so we all know that. So we know a few basics. But Bean knows everything about my language. Everything. How many of you know a dog that you cannot say the word walk in front of them? Raise your hand. Lots of hands. You can't say walk in front of her. You can't spell walk. She knows it. We changed it then. We said, let's say patrol. Want to go on patrol? Now she knows patrol. It's pointless to try and hide anything from her. I just put on a certain pair of shoes, and she knows exactly what I'm about to do. She's included or she's not. If I put on the wrong pair of shoes, and they aren't hiking shoes or running shoes, she just slumps down like I've just abused her. So she knows my language. She knows the subtleties of my language, but I don't know the subtleties of her language. I don't think that intelligence is a measure of worth, but often in society we do measure the worth of another being by their intelligence, and especially other species. It's very recent that we accepted that other races might actually have intelligence, feelings, and we shouldn't separate out families and sell the individuals as a product. It's fairly recent. It's in my grandmother's era. It's recent. So we've come quite a ways in the U.S. since these days when we're separating these children from their parents and selling them to whoever the highest bidder was. We still do this with other species. We still haven't accepted their bonds of love. So how many of you have ever felt love for another being? Raise your hand. Human or non-human? Raise your hand. How many of you could explain to me exactly what that love is? What is it? Not circumstances. Oh, I would do this for him, I would do this for her. What is it? Raise your hand if you could clearly explain to me what that is. No hands. It's nearly impossible to describe that emotion, even in our own species. So what about accepting that there is love? If I say that other species love each other, or love us, or love another species, I'm told that I'm anthropomorphizing. You can't prove that. I can't prove it with you. I can't prove it with you. I can't prove it with another human. I know it when it's in the air, but I can't prove it. There's so many things we can't prove. It's like if I said, okay, describe to me the color green. I don't know that what you see is the same as what I see. I don't know that what you feel when you say you love is the same as what I feel. So maybe this is what someone sees and they say, yeah, that's green. We don't know. We don't have a way of knowing. Even between different kinds of love, how do I distinguish between the love I feel for this rescued goat who I nurse back to health, between this dog in Mexico, my stepdaughter in Sweden, my best friend, this possum who I nurse back to health, the man who I married, and the dog who I love so much? How do I distinguish? I would jump in front of a truck to save any of them. That's love. But it's different kinds of love. I can't tell you how I distinguish them. That's how intangible this is, this love thing. We all know it. Everybody's hand went up, but we don't have a way to explain it. So love within species. This is a mother cow and a baby cow who were reunited. The mother cow was sold at auction to one farm. The calf was sold to another farm 35 miles away. In the morning, the farmer who had bought the mother went out and the stall was empty. The mother had smashed the gate, smashed the door, smashed another fence gate, and was gone. He gets a call about an hour later that she's been found. She made her way through those gates and over 35 miles of unknown territory. She was found in the other barn where her calf was, nursing her baby in the morning. She did this in one night. Made her way over unknown territory, made her way into a barn. She had to break into the next place after she broke out of her place. That's love. And scientists would tell me I can't prove that that's love. Hello, how do you prove love? That's a lot of proof. This is, how many of you know about Scarlet, the cat? So some of you do, a few of you do. This is Scarlet, and this is her 5 kittens. A firefighter went to a burning, abandoned building in New York. He went around the building. When he went around the building, he saw a mother cat carrying a kitten out. And she kept returning into the building. He was there in the distance to see her carry a couple cats out. She went back in so many times that she was burned blind. Her paws were burned, but she wouldn't leave a single kitten in that burning building. So he took her and the kittens and took them to the vet. And his report was that for the entire trip, without being able to see, she kept taking her nose and her one fairly good paw and counting heads, the whole way into the vet. If you want more details on any of these, you can just Google them. You know, that's how it is. Google it, you get the whole story. But Scarlett is all over the internet. She's a little heroine. That's love. You know, how many of you would keep entering a burning building? If you love who's in there, you're going to do it. There's cross-species love. These are two friends of mine. This is Topaz and Decker. And Topaz and Decker are inseparable. Topaz will not take a nap without Decker, will not really do anything without Decker. They hang out together. They live in Maine on an organic farm there, and they have a great life. How many of you know about Owen Ramsey? A few of you do, but not many do. In the tsunami off the coast of Kenya, Owen was found stranded on just a little spit of rock. So Owen was rescued, and when Owen was put into an enclosure, this tortoise, Owen weighs 600 pounds here, by the way, this tortoise adopted him. And they lived together for quite a while, and the tortoise, MZ, is said to have saved Owen, who was, you know, a baby hippopotamus orphan. And they loved each other until they were separated out when Owen got really big and his cozying up with the tortoises was a little more dangerous. He ended up hooking up with another hippopotamus. This is a dear friend of mine, Carrie, and she lives in northern New Mexico. This is her adoptee, a blind chicken named Blindy, not the most creative name, but she was working on an organic farm that refused to give any veterinary care to the birds on that farm. And so whenever there were sick birds, she would bring them to the vet, or she'd bring them home, and Blindy got completely attached to her. Blindy does not want to be put down ever. So in order to use your hands at all, you have to put Blindy in the sling, or you don't get anything done. I did chicken sitting for her last year, and I was wearing the sling all the time, all the time. In the morning, Blindy would be down below the loft where I was sleeping, just going nuts, because I wasn't holding her, you know, and I'd scurry down the loft stairs and pick her up, and she'd just calm down in my arms. Blindy is amazing. She comes to her name. There are other rescued birds, they all come to their names. They have a dog door. They go in and out of the house. Here's Carrie in the hammock with Blindy reading a book, and they have personalities just like dogs or cats or any of the companion animals that we're used to. They're very, very individual. And it doesn't take long to realize that they have their own desires and dislikes and likes. The Blindy's one of my favorites. When I was chicken sitting for her the last time, you know, I had a moment of reprieve because Blindy went out the dog door to be in the sun. And then she raced back in and laid a brown egg right on my foot. She's quite the entertainment. This is Coco, and lots of people know about Coco. Coco learned sign language, and Coco also adopted this kitten. This kitten escaped the enclosure and was killed, and Coco was inconsolable, just a wreck over the loss of this kitten. And the kitten didn't have a tail, and for years and years, anytime Coco saw a photo of any cat or saw a cat with a short tail or no tail, Coco would sign the word for cry and just missed her best friend. Look at that unlikely pair. Here's Coco again. How many of you know the story of Michael, who was another gorilla who was brought in to live with Coco? So you know that one or two people know it. A 3-year-old gorilla whose mother had been shot by poachers was brought in to live with Coco. Coco was 5 at the time, and Coco was learning sign language, she was up to about 600 words, and she taught sign language to Michael, who was brought in. And through learning sign language, Michael was able to tell the story to the humans at this facility, to tell the whole story of the poachers coming and killing his mother, and he would tell it over and over, and then sign sad, cry, miss mother, just keep signing. But he'd tell the story because he had the language to express it. After 24 years together, it was Coco and Michael. Michael died. Coco was a wreck. Coco would, these are Michael's blankets, and Coco would just keep making a nest of the blankets and stopped getting excited about food. It was years before Coco expressed excitement about food again. It was a morning that just went on and on. That's love. That is love. You know, she would get up on a crate to look into the window of the enclosure that used to be Michael's and just stare in there and then just stare out into space. Just, you know, I'm sure just wondering where her best friend is. They had 24 years together, but she never gave up those blankets that she made a nest out of. How many of you know, well, you know about popular culture, but raise your hand. How many of you know who Ellen DeGeneres is? Okay, so lots of you. She is married to a woman named Portia de Rossi. And Portia recently decided that she was no longer going to eat animals. And she told the story of why. They have a ranch, and on their ranch they have various rescued beings who come there to live with them. So they have rescued cows and calves, and they rescued a mare. And the mare had a 5-hour drive to get to their ranch. And Portia was kind of worried about the mare, about the stress of the ride, and so she got up at 4 in the morning to go check on the mare. She went out, and she said that what she saw changed her life forever. That the cows were lined up like this, and one by one they were going to the mare, going nose to nose in a greeting, and then they would step back in the line. And then the next one would go up, nose to nose. Then they wanted the calves to go, but the calves were a little shy about this strange-looking animal, and so they pushed the calves to go and greet the mare, to make her comfortable. And then they all just gathered around her. But one by one first, they greeted her, nose to nose to nose. And she watched that and she said, that's it. You know, I can never eat them again. So this is an older photo of Roger Fouts, who is, as many of you know, someone who was working teaching sign language to chimpanzees. And this is a newer photo. And there was a chimpanzee who he was working with. And just so you know, I'm not keen, for whatever knowledge it brings, I'm never keen on having any of these animals in captivity. We've learned a lot from some behavioral stuff in these labs about what these animals are capable of. But there's never a reason to bring them into captivity for these. So he worked for a very, very long time with a variety of chimpanzees. There was Washoe and there was Bowie, and this is Bowie. And unfortunately, he worked with them, but he didn't have control over their fates. So after working with Bowie for a very long time and teaching Bowie language, Bowie was sold off to an experimental lab where various invasive experiments were done on him for decades. 2020 contacted Roger Fouts and said, we want to reunite you with Bowie. He hadn't seen Bowie in decades. So 2020 had the cameras going, brought Roger in, And he came in as soon as Bowie, when they first saw Bowie, and their Bowie was just slumped down in a corner, completely dejected in a cage. When Bowie heard Roger's voice, he perked right up. He came right over to the edge of the cage that he was kept in and started signing. And after decades, what he was signing at first was the nickname he had made up, Bowie had made up for Roger. And he was signing the nickname, and he was so excited to just see a friendly face, to speak to him. And they signed and they touched through the bars. And you can read about this online. Roger was a wreck. This was so difficult for him because he has no control. He can't save his friend. When Roger was there for a little while, and he said, "You know, I have to go now," Bowie slumped down, went back into the corner, and put his hand over his head like this, completely dejected. And Roger left just feeling like it was the most miserable experience of his life. So it was love on both of their parts. Love and longing and despair. So this story was quite popular for a while. This crow raised this kitten. You can see video footage of it if you go online. You can Google this. Crow raises kitten. This couple was watching. They couldn't believe it. They watched this crow making sure that this kitten didn't go on the road, feeding this kitten. They watched it from the house. They started filming it. Then they decided they're going to invite the kitten inside their house, left the crow outside. So they invite the kitten in, and the crow just stood guard outside the door. But in the morning, the crow went crazy on the screen until they let the cat out. And then they would share food. The crow really wanted to protect the kitten from dangers, from cars, fed the kitten all the time. And the couple just learned, we have to get up early, we've got to let the kitten out, because otherwise the crow's going to go crazy. So these two were just great buddies, and the footage is great, you know, where the crow's bringing food to the cat. So they know how to love beyond borders. This dog saved this boy from a cougar. The dog leaped in and saved the boy's life. The cougar kept attacking, and the dog just kept standing guard and saved the boy's life. There are so many stories of dogs doing this, of saving humans. This is a humpback whale eye. There was an amazing event that occurred off the California coast. A humpback whale got caught up in crab traps, in the cables of the crab traps. The crab traps weigh 90 pounds each. And all these crab traps were tearing into the humpback whale's skin and weighing him down so much that he couldn't get up to breathe. They need to surface to breathe. And he was getting exhausted from carrying what ended up being more than a few tons of traps around his body up to the surface. There was a boat that was out and saw this and called in to some divers to see if they would help. So a boat full of divers came out. All they had was knives to cut the cables. And they were scared. This is a big animal who's in distress. But they went for it. They dove in the water and they started cutting cables like crazy. The person who was working next to the eye, cutting the cables there, and they had to go deep because the cables were in the skin, said that the eye just kept following him. This giant eye kept following him, and everybody was scared. What's going to happen when we get them all off? You know, how is this giant being going to react? They get the final cables off, and the whale swims off, but then does an about face, and at high speed is coming back toward them. The divers are all still in the water. There's a woman diver in the boat waiting for them. This whale comes back at high speed and goes to each of them one by one and puts that giant whale nose on each of their foreheads. One by one by one. Goes up to the person in the boat, she puts her head down and goes up to her forehead. And you can hear interviews with them online, but the gist of it is that each of them said, what I felt was that she was saying thank you, that it was gratitude, and they're crying. These aren't animal rights people, these are just a bunch of divers. And they said, I never felt anything like that in my life. The feeling that I felt coming off of that whale. She did it to each of them, and then she swam off. That's love. And here's one of the ultimate love stories. This is the last love story I'm going to tell you tonight. This is Tara and Bella. And Tara came into the elephant sanctuary in Tennessee. How many of you know about Tara and Bella? Raise your hand. So quite a few of you do know about them. The elephant came into the elephant sanctuary. Normally they choose another elephant to be with. Tara never did that. Tara chose Bella, the dog. And they were inseparable, completely inseparable. And Bella had a spinal cord injury and had to be indoors for about 3 weeks. And Tara never left the vigil, looking inside the building and standing there. And they finally thought, you know, let's give her a break, let's bring her buddy out here. So they carried the dog out. And what happened after that was beautiful. That's what's going on here. This is the moment when she's saying hi to her friend. With her trunk and her foot, she stroked the dog. That giant pachyderm foot, you know, they're massive. She stroked the dog, stroking, and, well, they claim that that's really why that dog healed. That dog needed a little bit of pachyderm love. So we aren't anthropomorphizing. We aren't just guessing when we say, yes, of course, other species can love. They can love within their own species. They can love across species. Most of us have known the love of another species. Love is something that isn't just reserved for we humans, that all species can feel it. They have bonds. They care for each other. They have preferences. They have people and other beings who they love more than other people and other beings. And our job is to honor them and to speak up for them. To speak up for them and to honor their love for each other and love for other beings. And just be their voices. Be their voices so they can keep loving who they want to love. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. It's really great to be here. Can someone hit the lights? Oh, okay. It takes a light technician. What's next on our schedule?
Is there a question, or are you going to be?
Do we have time for that? Oh. Okay, any questions that anyone has?
Oh, good job.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Congratulations. Dawn Quigley is a long-time volunteer and activist. She's been coming, as Lynn said, our Indigo Section Committee, the one here to call ourselves. We've been meeting every week for almost 6 years, or something very close to that. And from the very beginning, Dawn's been there, so a weekly member, very active in the Alliance, and she has a word that she would like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Gosh, feeling lots of love in the air this evening. Thank you, Rick and Lynn, for putting together a fabulous program this evening. Congratulations to all the recipients of the Heart Awards. There is another Heart Award that was not in your program, and I'd like to invite Dee Dee Duvall to come up to the podium.
Thank you, Don. It is my honor to present this print that reads, "Leadership and change begin in a room with one person and a vision. One person can indeed make a profound difference." To Rick and Lynn, in recognition and appreciation for all you do to help make our world a more compassionate one for people, the animals, and environment, your family and friends, thank you. Rick and Lynn, would you like to come up and accept your gift?
So go drink and dance. Thank you all for coming very much. All of our awardees, if you'll stay hang around so we get a couple pictures of you. And thank you all for coming so very, very much.